Hey Board Game Army, today we're having a look at a game called The Great War, which is a new iteration of a war game series called Command & Colors, developed by a Borg named Richard Mann. No, yeah, I got that right. And this particularly is set in World War I, which is one of the most devastating conflicts humanity has ever seen. And we felt it's not really very respectful to make jokes. So today, for the first time ever, you're going to see what No Pun Included is like when it's not funny. Hello, and welcome to Nondigital Cardboard Geek Meeple'n'stuff. Yay! On today's show, we're reviewing The Great War. Look at all the games I have behind me. Now, I'm sure you're excited about today's review, and let's have a look at the rules. This is rule number 1. This is rule number 2. Now, if you do that, that's rule number 3. And don't forget about rule number 4, because if you do, then rule number 7. And that, my friends, is The Great War. So it's time for my final thoughts. I really enjoyed The Great War, and I hope you did too. Tune in for my channel to never again. Welcome to The Great War, which, as I've said before, is a Command & Colors World War I game. And that might mean something to you or might mean absolutely nothing. And either way is completely fine because, well, The Great War, first of all, for what it is a very, very accessible game. As in, yes, it is a war game. It has a lot of fiddly components, a lot of these tiny soldiers, but none of that matters very much because getting into the game is incredibly easy because of the super accessible rules. And that is one of the mainstays of a Command and Colors system. You see, you've heard, if when you start Fallout, the computer game, which has nothing to do with this, but you hear Ron Perlman's voice saying, war never changes. Well, in Command and Colors, war always changes because no matter which iteration of the system you play, you always get something a little bit different, but something also very familiar at the same time. And it is not an exception here. If you're a Command & Colors veteran, then none of this is really going to be any new to you. But if you are new to Command & Colors, then buckle your seats because it's going to be a wild rules ride. And what Command & Colors essentially boils down to is that every turn you play a card, one of your command cards. You normally have a certain limit that the scenario tells you how many you're going to have, and at the end of every round you redraw the card that you've spent. But basically what the card says is it tells you how many units you're activating and where you're activating them. So for example, a Probe Center 2 card will let you activate 2 units in the center region, and almost every Command & Color game that I can think of actually has the board divided into 3 separate sections: left, right, and center. And your left is basically your left, and your enemy's left is their left. And you activate those units, you move them if you want to, and you shoot with them. And it's as simple as that. And there are various different things that come into play, like for example, what your unit is, and how far away its enemy is, and what kind of terrain is the enemy sitting in. Are they in trenches? Well, they're going to suffer penalty. Are they hiding in trees? Then again, it's harder to hit them, and on it goes. And basically, what you're doing is you and your opponent, you're activating a command card a turn each, moving some soldiers and shooting, and it's as simple as that. And when you shoot, you roll some dice, and you get different results, and different results mean different things. For example, the target unit might be retreating because they got a retreat flag, they got scared of all the enemy fire, and they have to go back, which might actually be beneficial for the enemy unit. Or, here's an infantry hit. So there you go, that's a hit against an infantry unit. It's as simple and clear as that. And you're saying, well, if it's that simple, Is it really interesting? And yeah, Command and Colors is a very interesting system, and here's why. Gameplay in the Great War is scenario based, and so it is in other Command and Colors games. And that's one of the cool things about it, because you see the scenarios are historical representations of actual battles, and it puts you in the general's pants and forces you into the same conflict, into the same problems, into the same decision making that they faced. And maybe you're going to take the exact same path if you're a history buff and you know your battles, or you're going to try and come up with an alternating solution, or there's so much potential here. Let's say like you're the British, and see, the British in the Great War are often forced to advance by the rules of the scenarios, because if the British just sit and do nothing, the Germans eventually are going to get enough of these medals, and medals what you're looking for to win the game. And you get medals by various things dictated by the scenario. For example, if you're holding certain objectives, or if you simply eliminate an enemy troop. And let's say you are the British, like I said here, and you decide, hey, I'm going to be brave and I'm going to advance because, hey, I need to advance, right? I'm going to move my troops here, and you're going to attack the enemies in the trenches, but because they're well barricaded, because they have good defenses, you might not kill them. And of course, because once enemies take casualties, they don't become any weaker, they just effectively have less hit points. They're probably going to jump out of the trenches and meet you headway and take you out and get that necessary medal that they need. So there's a lot of forethought required by every player in the Great War. But the great thing about it is that the turns never do take very long, because it's just pretty much you activate your guys, you think about a little bit about what you're going to do, and you move them and you roll some dice, and then bam, the turn goes to your opponent, and bam, it goes back to you, and bam, 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 it keeps moving. If it's not clear yet, the Great War is a miniature war game, and as such, it has tasty, tasty miniatures. These look like chocolate. These look like ash. But regardless, here's 5 delicious facts about the miniatures in the Great War. Number 1. This, and if you are an experienced wargamer, you know exactly what this is. That's right. Get yourself some alone time with your cutters and enjoy some lovely, lovely cutting sprues, because that's what you're going to be doing before you play this game. That's right. Every miniature needs to be cut out. And seriously, this is 2015. Why do we have this in board games today? Like, it was bad enough when last year I bought Space Hulk and I spent 6 hours cutting those miniatures out, only to realize that I don't really like Space Hulk. And thankfully, what the Great War has going for it is that, unlike Space Hulk, it's actually a pretty good game. And yeah. Number 2. These things are tiny and brittle and precious. And when you're cutting these British military infantry out from the sprues, well, you say goodbye to these little bits, because they just kind of break off. I know I just broke it off of camera, but trust me, it doesn't even matter anymore, because no matter how hard you try, you're going to break about 1/4 of these, right? 1/4 broken bayonettas. That's it. Number 3. They're absolutely gorgeous, and instead of showing you my face, I'm just going to superimpose some B-roll over it, just so you can see just how beautiful and well detailed these miniatures are. These guys with guns, and guys with grenades and machine guns, and these guys who have fingers in their ear holes. It's brilliant. Number 4. Flags! Yes! Or lack of thereof, because in Memoir 44 you used to have cardboard flags to designate special units, and you just don't, because you have plastic minis instead, and just as detailed as the other ones, and they look gorgeous. Number 5. Wait, I haven't even finished number 4 yet. Anyway, I've totally prepared number 5, and number 6. Can you maybe just not do that? Because number 7. Oh, come on. Can I talk now? Number 5. Okay. I haven't really got 5. Are you happy now? Number 5. It's easier for me to compare the Great War to Memoir 44. See, I played quite a few games in the Command and Colors line, And whilst I wouldn't call myself an expert, I find that the closest equivalent is Memoir 44. And actually, it's just easier to pick a game as a baseline for comparison and stick with it. And so the number one difference that comes in the Great War from Memoir 44 is the fact how terrain imposes penalties on units. So see, the command and colors, terrain is really, really important because it essentially provides penalties to anyone who's attacking a unit that is within a specific type of terrain. And in Memoir 44, the penalties applied simply reduce the number of dice you were attacking with. And in the Great War, it doesn't reduce the number of dice you attack with, but it does reduce certain results that you get after you roll the dice. And the reason that exists in this game is because, you see, there is a lot of trenches in this game. So much so that every hex that comes in this box has a straight line trench on it. And every scenario in this rulebook is just chock full of trenches. And that represents World War I thematically really, really well. But you see, the problem is that if everyone's just sitting in trenches, then there is no incentive to move out. And so what the game does is, instead of everyone sitting down and rolling a single die, you get to roll more dice and see if luck is on your side. Whilst a little bit more random, it does move the game along. Another major difference in the Great War in comparison to Memoir 44 and some other Command & Colors games is that units can now shoot 4 spaces away, and that is quite a lot. 4 spaces is pretty much from here to here easily, and that is yet another reason why you should just sit in your trench and never move out and never move along. And whilst thematically that's accurate, you know, in terms of World War I and the meat grinder that it was, it doesn't make for very interesting gameplay. And luckily the game solves that perfectly with 2 special rules that it introduces. And the number one is reserve artillery. See, reserve artillery comes in the form of this hexagonal token that you put on a specific space at certain times in the game, and it just allows you to shell that area. And what it effectively does is, it works as a deterrent because, you know, it stops the enemy army from just grouping up in one single space and very well barricaded places and just turtling up effectively. But in the same way, it kind of stops you from moving out as well. Well, not really moving out, but it certainly makes you think about where you're going to go. Because if you present your opponent with a really good location to shell, then they're just going to go for it. And the other thing that makes it really interesting is that this is not necessarily a guaranteed hit because, hey, reserve artillery is basically really far away. It's not even represented on the board. There's no mini for it. There's nothing for it except for this target token. And what happens is that basically it's not very accurate, and you have to roll doubles on d6s to even hit that specific location. And the other thing that makes you move out from your trenches and just not sit one place, especially if you are the British, is that pretty much every scenario in the rulebook includes this rule that says eventually Germans can spend certain types of cards and just get victory medals, and, you know, they'll win if you don't move along. And the British are also incentivized by moving over to the other side of the map and getting victory points that way. So there is constant movement in the game, which is great. It makes things go at a really fast pace, at a breakneck pace actually, and it just kind of never stops, and there's casualties everywhere, and it's quite brutal and quite tragic. The number of dice you roll during artillery bombardment depends on how many of these HQ tokens you spend. And that's not the only thing you spend HQ tokens on. See, you need to spend HQ tokens on activating these combat cards. And combat cards is essentially very similar to the system of magic and battle law, and they are essentially extra things you can do on your turn, or sometimes even your opponent's turn. And extra things is great, but, well, you're not going to believe it. You see, there's this one problem. It has take that mechanics in it. And you say, no, Efka, you can't be saying that. It's 2015. Surely game designers by now have realized that take that is lazy, uninspired, and horrible mechanic that reviewers just simply cry foul at and let loose the dogs of, well, war. But regardless, it does make the game a little bit more diverse in terms of, you know, presents thematic narrative things like, oh, well, your soldiers just got trench foot, or suddenly, you know, there's a boost to grenades because your grenades magically become better. But really, I do have one pretty big criticism of the Great War, and whilst inevitable, it does make me enjoy the game quite a little bit less than I want to, and that is the setup time. Setting up this thing, as you can tell, with lots and lots and lots of cardboard tiles, and I mean way more than your average, you know, Battle or Battle of Westeros or Memoir 44 or any Command and Colors game. This has a huge amount of tiles because of the trenches that you have to set up every game. And the minis, again, they are really, really tiny, and on top of that, you have to set up this random area bombardment thing, which basically means that the map is slightly different every time you play the same scenario. Half an hour, yep, 30 minutes is what it took me to set up this area for filming, and it's what it takes when you start playing. And the games themselves, they're not that long. They take about 45 minutes to an hour, really. So that's half an hour on top of that. Of course, you can play for the second time, switching sides, and that will let you utilize the map again. But even then, you'll have to rebuild all the miniatures and place them where they go in their normal locations. And as much as I would like to say, yes, this game is a lot of fun, and all the little things that annoy me that I mentioned previously in the video, they don't really matter so much to me. Yes, even the take that mechanics, I am not that bothered by, but this setup time is just painfully brutal. And you know what? I don't care. Because at the end of the day, the Great War is a great game. It is a great iteration of Command and Colors. It is a great miniature game. It is enjoyable. It is tense. It is unpredictable. It just thrusts you in the front line, and it, you know, puts the foot on the pedal, and you're suddenly in a tractor, and somewhere in the background, you know, Metallica's Fuel is playing, and the tractor starts going at 60 miles per hour, and, you know, things are jumping at you from different sides, and you're swatting them off. And that's the feeling that the Great War gives me. That is the unrelenting, you know, fuel, adrenaline, kind of intense experience that I get from it. But at the same time, all you're doing is just you're kind of sitting down, moving some miniatures and rolling some dice. And I think it's the ability of a really good game to put you in that position, make you feel that tension and that excitement when you play it. And the Great War is certainly not for everyone. Don't forget that depiction is not endorsement. So because it depicts World War One, it doesn't mean it endorses war or anything like that. I have a very, very funny relationship with war, being the left-wing commie that I am, and I'm alright with playing it because I think this is respectful. It doesn't make fun of it in every way, and we touched on that in our review of Memoir 44, and you should really watch it if you haven't seen it, because we go on a we go on to HMS Belfast somewhat illegally and film some scenes there. But saying that, would I recommend buying the Great War? Is it a buy, a play, or stay away? Well, if you're a Command and Colors fan, this is a definite buy. If you are new to this series, then it is a reasonable game to start with, although I would probably pick up Memoir 44 unless you want a game that you know will be expandable in the future, but you don't want to shell out completely for all the expansions, because this is just the base game right now and the expansions are coming in the future, so it gives you a great entryway point. Hello, no pun included, Board Game Army. This is your, well, by now monthly. I'm really hoping we can put these videos out faster. Your monthly subscribe here message, because if you enjoyed our video, you should really subscribe. It's good. It will make you feel warm inside. Now, the reason I am talking to you today is 2 reasons. First of all, a little update on Elaine's health situation. She is getting better. She is back to work now, which is exciting. But obviously, because she's back to work and she hasn't been to work in a while, they've kind of really like put everything on her in terms of like work amount. So she's really busy. And also, I have taken on a job as well at the moment, which is working at my comic book store, local comic book store. I am the comic book guy. Can you believe that? Anyway, so yeah, we basically barely have time to even spend time together. But we are going to try and figure out how to get these out faster to you, hopefully, than now. And number 2, I am going to Essen. That is so exciting. I really, really want to go to Essen. I was kind of, after last year, Essen really did me in, but I'm looking forward to going back now. And if you are going to Essen, then follow me on Twitter and hit me up saying, yo bro, except don't say yo bro, because no one really says that, but hit me up on Twitter and just, say hi, say, hey, I'm going to Essen, and we can, hang out, meet up, play board games. Hang out Imbiss style, or whatever those places that sell cheap bratwurst are called. Anyway, guys, you are our board game army. So as our board game army, those of you who subscribe, you can join if you like. As our board game army, I have the number 1 task for you. Yes, I'm actually sending out the troops to do my bidding. And the number 1 task for you as the board game army piece is to go out and find someone who hasn't played board games and play a board game with them. And let me know in the comments how it went. And if you're not up for the task, well, don't worry about it. But if you are up for recruiting someone new to the board game army, then go ahead and do it. Go ahead and find them and sit down with them and play a game with them and let me know how it went.